BMW's mid-size Sport Activity Coupé has undergone a complete refresh for this year. Taking cues from the 2019 X5 and X4 that we featured last year, this G06 modernizes the SUV for a new decade. Our spotlight is on this 2020 BMW X6 M50i. This is the first M Performance X6 offered in North America, and it comes with BMW's updated 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 producing 523 horsepower and 553 pound-feet of torque. At $112,500, we're looking at what makes this different from the X5 and everything you need to know about the X6 Sport Activity Coupé. Now, if you want to have a little bit of extracurricular reading when it comes to this, take a look at the video we did last year on the 2019 X5 xDrive 50i. Priced at $102,000, so about 10 grand less. That had pretty much what this vehicle has to offer, though it was not the M Performance. Also, the Premium Excellence package on that X5 was $16,000 when we tested it. The Premium Excellence on this is $17,000. But again, the biggest difference is this is what BMW calls a Sport Activity Coupé. The back end is not as functional as you would get on the X5, but you also have more power because this is the M50i M Performance version. The X5 we drove last year had 456 horsepower, 479 pound-feet of torque. This year is up to 523 and 553. Now let's go over that $17,000 Premium Excellence package. You have HomeLink, Comfort Access, soft closed doors, the Sky Lounge panoramic sunroof, heated and cooled front cup holders, heated, ventilated, massaging, and memory seats for the front, Clarity crafted glass iDrive controllers, the Walk Napa leather dashboard, 4-zone automatic climate control, ambient air, BMW's laser lights, surround view with Parking Assistant Plus, the Driving Assistant Plus, BMW's color HUD, Harman Kardon audio system, the anthracite Alcantara roofliner, steering and lane control, evasion assist, active cruise control, lane keep assist, and the BMW full merino individual leather interior. That's a lot of stuff for $17,000. Now this specific VIN is an early production model. We did talk about that last year as well with the X5. There are two features that BMW has since added to the Premium Excellence package that you should be able to get on a car if you were to go and buy the X6 M50i today. It includes the BMW Drive Recorder. It allows you to record the video feeds off the cameras on the vehicle, as well as rear window sunshades. Aside from that, this car would come the same today if you bought a new one compared to this sort of early production model. We have two other options though on this. $1,000 for the carbon fiber interior trim and $500 for probably the most controversial option I've ever seen on a BMW, the illuminated kidney grills. I like it. I think it looks really cool, especially at night. Some people are going to absolutely hate it, but I do like it. And it just helps to show that you're driving a BMW at night. If you were driving along and you saw one of these on the road, it is unmistakable with those kidney grills being lit up. You're either going to like it or you're going to hate it, but at least BMW gives you the option. It's not something that you have to have. And even if they did give it to you as an option, you can turn it off through the iDrive system. But it is interesting to note they require the vehicle to be off for you to change those settings. I don't know why. Now, BMW says that they have sold 443,000 X6s worldwide. This vehicle began production in December of 2007, so it's been on the market for quite a while. And I gotta say, I wasn't a huge fan of the previous generation's X6s, but I do like this one. This one has really grown on me. I still would take the X5 equipped exactly the same as this, but I do like the appeal of it now that I've driven it, and the back end, it looks a little bit better than it did on the X4 M40i that we featured last year. Compared to the previous generation, this vehicle is 26 millimeters longer, 42 millimeters longer wheelbase, 15 millimeters wider, and it is 6 millimeters shorter on the overall height. BMW says they've also improved the aerodynamics and has a lower center of gravity compared to the previous generation. Now, storage. The whole point that I would buy an SUV is to have that storage and cargo capacity. 580 liters of cargo capacity with the seats up. You have 1,525 liters if the seats are flat in the back. And then really the reason you're going to be buying the M50i is for performance. We're not necessarily going to be doing anything with it here because it's winter time, but it is a 0 to 100 kilometer car in 4.3 seconds. Now there's one feature on this that was not on the X5. BMW has improved their driving assistant system. It's now much like what Tesla does. When you activate the semi-autonomous system, the highest stage that they have on this, you can see the vehicles around you when you're on the highway. It shows up in the Live Cockpit Professional, and you can see the cars that are beside you, in front of you, and will actually distinguish between a car and a truck. Well, very cool stuff there. We have been doing some testing about it, and we'll talk about it a little bit on our road test, but we have driven semi-autonomous drive systems like this before, and it's very similar to what we discussed earlier in 2019 when we did the Mercedes vehicles. The final thing I'll mention before I freeze to death out here is the tires. We did have some people comment on the M550i that we featured a little while ago that the rear tires looked pretty small, and it's true. This vehicle would come with 275/35 R22 tires in the front and 315/30 R22s in the back. But because BMW has put a set of winter tires on here, these are Pirelli Scorpion tires, they don't have the staggered setup because the rims aren't what would come on this M Performance model. So we do have 275/45 R20s on here instead. A little bit meatier tire, and also the back isn't as wide. So you'll notice that on the shots there, but normally you would have those really thick, wide tires in the back, and it would look really cool. Now it's minus 23 degrees outside right now. Let's jump in, let's do our driving test, talk about how the X6 M50i performs on the road and everything else you need to know if you're in the market for a $112,000 Sport Activity Coupé. I want to talk about a few things on the inside here before we get on our road test portion. First off, the rear seat space. Space is pretty good. Headroom is tight. I do fit back there, and I find it's a little more difficult to get into the back seats. The way that the doors open are just a little different than the X5, kind of similar to the 5 Series that we drove a little while ago. My daughter fits back there with no problem, and like I said, I do get back there. I filmed most of the interior shots that you'll see of this by sitting in the back seat. It's not the worst experience, but it's also not the best either. But if you're buying a car like this, you probably aren't going to be as worried about the back seats as you are about the front. So it's just something to note. They do work. You can get back there. Adults can sit there, but obviously it's not as functional as the X5. Another thing to note, if you look at the footage that we had of the X5, you go back and watch the video, the button to open up the trunk was on the top of the driver's grab handle on the door. They've since moved that 2 buttons on top of where the memory seats are and the massaging seat function is for the driver. It's much easier to understand which button opens the trunk and which one closes it. So that's a nice little change from BMW as well. It's nice to see that they are improving things, even if they're small little details, but they do make a difference. And the last thing I want to mention is the interior sound. It sounds really quiet in here. Again, not as quiet as something like the X5 that we drove, but pretty darn close. We're driving 52 kilometers right now, and we're going to see, I do have the ability to see basic audio test here on my Apple Watch, so we will see how quiet it is. It's coming at between 58 and 61 decibels, so not bad overall. We'll see if this is even super accurate when we get into doing more vehicles like this, but that's just something to note. It is a very quiet vehicle on the inside here, despite the fact that it has a lot of power. When you give it some gas, you can hear the exhaust, you can hear the engine. It sounds really great. And that's one of the reasons why you're buying the M Performance version of this to begin with. You know what? I gotta say, I'm a believer now. I wasn't a huge fan of the Sport Activity Coupé before, and I wasn't really sure what to expect when I picked this up last week. But oh boy, especially looking at the side profile of this vehicle, I'm starting to like it. I mean, personally, I would still take the X5 over this just because it's a little bit more functional for me. But this is now the 7th day that I've had this vehicle, and in that time I have put just my daughter in the back seat. There's been nobody else back there. The cargo space I used for groceries, and even that was too big. And there weren't enough groceries really for the trunk area, so they kind of just flew around as I was driving around. So I have to say, I do understand the reason for buying this. And if you look at the back on its own, or you look at the front on its own, okay, right? It's a different look. But once I was filming the exterior and I saw the side profile of this car, that's when I realized I actually really do like it. It was really weird. I haven't really been a fan of the X6 before, we mentioned that, and even the X4 M50i that we featured last year, just wasn't really sold on it. But this one, yeah, I like it a lot more. I'm a believer. And I know a lot of people out there are going to disagree with that. A lot of people just don't like these Sport Activity Coupes to begin with, and a lot of people don't like that illuminated grille, but that's another thing I do like on this car. Now what you're hearing on the microphone probably is freezing rain. The last, not even 24 hours here, have been a disaster. We had tons of rain about 24 hours ago exactly, followed by freezing rain, followed by snow, and now we're back to freezing rain. The roads here are not plowed, not very well at least. There's likely a layer of ice or freezing rain underneath the snow that's on here now. And really the snow that's on here now is mostly freezing rain. So we're looking at some pretty rough conditions here, but so far the X6 has done great, and that's expected. It's a BMW. If I give it some gas, oh yeah, it manages that so well. It knows that there's something preventing it from giving full throttle to all the wheels, and it manages it really, really well. I didn't have any issues there. It's hard to see on the video, but I didn't have any slippage or any traction loss. The car handled it incredibly well. And it's one of the reasons why, again, I mentioned this back when we were doing the X1 last week, it's why I like driving BMWs during this weather, because they work so well. They have so much experience with their four-wheel drive system that it makes up for the fact that this costs $112,000. I don't worry about it. And yeah, you lose some power going around the corner there because it's deep snow, but give it a little semi-rip, and we're back to business. Now, again, this is the M Performance, so you've got the M Sport suspension. It's a little firmer than you're going to find on the regular X6 xDrive 40i. If you don't get the M Sport suspension, you have the powerful engine there. We've talked about it. We talked about it in the M850i, the M550i, and now we've got it in this. We're also going to be driving other vehicles this year from BMW with that 4.4 liter twin turbo V8. It works so well. Transmission works really well. And honestly, there's not much to complain about this. I turn off the auto stop start system, which I usually do for these cars anyway. The one thing I noticed with this is even before you stop, it will turn itself off. So if you've got it activated and you're coming up to a stoplight, it will turn off and kind of roll into where you're supposed to go. I turn it off, but you can have it on if you want. And everything else is working really well. The only problem is the weather today. And I guess that's my fault. I like to film these cars when the weather is a little rough so you can see how they perform, get a better taste of what's to come if you have rough weather. But it actually is pretty crap out here. My windshield is getting filled up too quickly from the freezing rain. It's not my favorite, and I'm sure it doesn't sound great on the audio either as we have all this freezing rain coming down on the car. But man, I feel really safe in this car, tons of control, and it's what you would want if you're stuck in a situation like this. Normally you shouldn't be going out if the weather is like this, especially if you have the opportunity to stay home, bundle up with some hot chocolate in front of the fire, whatever you want to do. But if you got to go out, there's no other vehicle I'd rather be in than a BMW to do it. Oh yeah, like it just goes. There's no worry. And the fact that it's like crap weather here, most any other cars, especially a all-wheel drive car, I would have been slipping everywhere. And again, it's the tires. These aren't even the best tires that you can get from Pirelli when it comes to winter. These are kind of like they're good, but they're not the greatest, and they're still doing such a fantastic job here. Like, it's ice. I'm driving on ice, unlike last week where it was kind of ice. This is literally all ice, and man, this thing is doing a great job of it. Oh man, look at it go. Might not be the vehicle for everybody, and I didn't think it was going to be the vehicle for me when I first picked it up. I'm really liking it a whole lot more now. I would really like to try out the X5 M50i now. Same experience as this, but thinking back to that X5 now, I hate to say it, I know you guys are going to hate me for it, but I'm starting to think that I would rather take this.
Fuel economy was pretty decent with the X6 M50i, only doing a tenth of a liter per 100 kilometers worse on our 100 kilometer test loop over the X5 xDrive 50i at 11.9 liters per 100 kilometers or 19.8 US miles per gallon. And our mostly highway week finished off at a respectable 13.7 liters per 100 kilometers or 17.2 mpg. Now you better get your phone ready to call the cops because I'm topping off our list of likes with that illuminated grille. I don't care what the haters say, this is a feature that I would option on my X6 M50i without hesitation. Now I know a lot of the true BMW enthusiasts out there pile on when it comes to these features, but I think it works on a vehicle like this. The exterior design is also a win for us, bringing the best of what the G05 X5 had to offer with a slightly different grille design. The back end works better on this X6 for us than it did on the X4, and the overall shape of this feels just right. The M50i performance is also another strong selling point for us. Yes, you can go up to the full-out X6M competition, but this M performance model provided more than enough enjoyment while still getting reasonably good fuel economy. Finally, the overall driving dynamic of the X6 is why these vehicles sell as well as they do. The G06 performs the way you'd expect a BMW to, without feeling overly top-heavy like most other SUVs. The mix of M performance parts elevates the experience beyond the X5 xDrive 50i we drove last year, making that approximate $10,000 price premium worth it. And as far as dislikes go, there's not much. Essentially, the dislikes we had with the X5 last year aren't problems this time around, as the Qi wireless charger worked without issue, the HUD was plenty large, and us here in North America can experience the Sky Lounge on the X6. The BMW laser lights still had no discernible effect during our nighttime testing, so if BMW would like to show me how they work, I'd really appreciate it so I can finally take it off my list. Rear seat access is to be expected given the shape of this vehicle, but I found that the rear doors didn't open wide enough and made getting in and out of hard even for my daughter. The third and final dislike is something that I really hate to do, but the Harman Kardon audio system is making its appearance on our dislike list for the first time. Normally we love the sound replication from this, but given how expensive the X6 M50i is, we think the Bowers & Wilkins system should be included with the Premium Excellence package. The HK on this sounded underwhelming and didn't entice me to pump the tunes up while driving. Overall though, the 2020 BMW X6 M50i is a truly spectacular sport activity coupe, and has shown me the ways of the four-door fastback SUV. It's more performance than you need on a daily basis, and it has the looks to back it up. To do this test drive style, we configure it pretty much the same way, add on the Bowers & Wilkins audio system, and maybe change the paint to something a little bit more in the maroon department with a chocolate interior. Aside from that though, this is one of the best vehicles we've tested in the performance segment, and is one that we're glad we had the chance to drive, even though a lot of people just didn't seem to like it when we posted it on social media.